Hey everyone, welcome back to Amanda's Kitchen. Today we've decided to change the scenery and bust out the Camp Chef, and you guys wanted to see it, so we're making chicken gnocchi soup. Start by melting 4 tablespoons of butter. And I have a really big stock pot because I'm actually going to double the recipe. So it's actually 8 tablespoons of butter is what I'm using. So I don't know if you guys like to go to Olive Garden. I like to go once in a while, and I usually have their chicken gnocchi soup. And comparably, I think this is really close to the same flavor. So hopefully you'll be happy with it. Alright, so once your butter is melted, we are going to chop up a cup of onion. I have some of it chopped already, so we'll do that, chop up the rest. Watch your fingers. Put this in there. Okay, so we'll put all of this in. And you also want to put in your celery, which is also a cup of celery. And we'll chop up, cut mine in a little bit smaller chunks. And really the ingredients, the amount of the ingredients that you can put in, you can alter it and put more or less, it's up to you. So now you want to cook this for about 5 minutes until your onions turn almost translucent. So we'll let those fry up a little bit. In the meantime, what we can do is get our carrots ready, and so it calls for julienned carrots, and you can buy bags of them I got this at Fred Meyer. And I always give these a little bit of a chop just to make them not quite so long. So you will want to have at least 1.5 cups of carrots, more or less, up to you. So just use the whole bag. So once your onions start to turn translucent, then you want to add in your garlic, and it calls for a couple cloves. I just use minced. Get that in there. Let that cook for 1 to 2 minutes. I wish you could smell it. So now we're going to add in our flour. It calls for a 1/4 cup of flour, but like I said, I'm doubling it, so this is a 1/2 cup, and you want to sprinkle it over the top of your celery and onions that are cooking. You want to make sure that you don't have any lumps. Okay, so now we're going to slowly pour in a quart of 1/2 and 1/2. So you want to let this simmer until it starts to thicken a little. All right, so while your soup is cooking, we're gonna go ahead and make some bread. I actually advise that if you're gonna do this, you should probably start it before you start your soup because it takes a couple hours, but we'll get it done anyway. So first, what we wanna do is activate our yeast. So I'm going to be making 2 loaves of bread. So I have 2 bowls. So you want to put 2½ teaspoons of yeast, 1 in each bowl. And the bread recipe calls for 1/8 cup of sugar, and you want to add a little bit of the sugar into your each of the yeast. So then we'll take the remaining sugar and put it in each flour bowl. So we have our 3 cups of flour, 1½ teaspoons of salt. Make sure you keep them separated. Add a little sugar. All right. And that's it. So now, to each of your yeast, you want to add a cup of warm water and get that all bubbly and working. Give it a little bit of a stir. I don't know about you, but I just love the smell of yeast. It smells so good. Okay, so if you can see, it's already starting to work. So we're gonna let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. And while this is getting working, we're gonna go and check on our soup.
Thank you. Yes. Hey!
All right, now that this is thickened up, now is the time you want to add in 3 cups of chicken stock. And I usually add in a little more, just because. All right. So now you let that simmer and start to thicken up again for a couple minutes. So once that has simmered for a couple minutes, now is the time to add your carrots. Give that a stir. And then we are going to rough chop some fresh spinach. Roughly a cup or so, but it's all personal preference. Just a little more. Okay. All right. It's looking pretty good. Alright, so now we're going to add our spices, and we're going to add some thyme and parsley. And it calls for a quarter teaspoon, but I usually add extra. So it calls for a half a teaspoon of parsley, but you know, add what you want. Now, once that's done, you are going to cook your gnocchi. So you can buy packages of these at Fred Meyer. I honestly don't know how to make it by hand. So, you want to open this, and there's just little potato dumplings. So the trick is with these is you want to boil them before you put them in your soup. Okay, make sure we stir this and make sure it's doesn't stick to the bottom. Alright, so we'll pour these into our boiling water, hopefully without splashing. Ooh. Oh, we lost one. And they'll separate and come apart on their own. So I have my big ladle. And just kind of let them... Alright, well while those are boiling, we're going to add our chicken. So the recipe calls for chicken breast that you pre-cook. And you can do that if you want to eat it right away. I let mine simmer and cook for a while. So I prefer boneless, skinless chicken thighs that I have chopped up into small little chunks. So if you're going to use this, be sure to cook it all the way through. Plus with doing that, you're going to have to wait a little longer to taste it too. Just have to boil them till they float. Once they float, you just scoop them up and put them right in your soup pot. Oh, they're coming up. They're bubbling. We have floaters. There they come. Like this, scoop them out. Put them in. Looking really good. All the chunks of chicken and the gnocchi. So now we'll let this cook together for about a half an hour. Well, 15 minutes, we'll check on it. Okay, so now that our yeast is activated, we'll bring it over here. Have it ready, and all of these ingredients, that the sugar and the salt that you put in your flour, you want to mix that up a little bit with a whisk before you put your yeast in. Okay. So you want to have some more water here for you to use, because once you dump this in, it's not going to be enough to make a ball, so you're going to have to add in more water until you get the correct texture to where you can knead it really well. And bring it over here. Okay, so pour in your yeast. It's nice and foamy. Start to mix that around. No, it's not even close to being. Just start adding in some water, a little at a time. kids just love this bread with homemade jam, especially hot out of the oven. Oh, it's so good. And it's so simple to make. With this one, I'm going to put some flour down on the counter. This aside. Flour. Flour down. Bread out. It into a nice round ball. Pretty good. So then you'll take the bowl that it was in. You want to spray it with a little bit of spray. Put it in there and I flip it. Sometimes you can add a little more spray on top if you want, just to have a little bit of oil. And there you go. So you stick it in your warmed up oven and let it rise. Alright, now that our bread has risen up once, we're going to go get it and we're going to knead it down and put it in our loaf pans. Get those ready. Might as well spray them now. Those look good. Okay, so we're gonna put some more flour down on our counter. Turn them out. More flour on top. Knead it down. My grandma used to say, you gotta make it dead. Basically means to where the dough doesn't want to stretch anymore, and then you gotta let it rest for a while again. Now I kind of just lengthen it out a little bit and plop her in your loaf pan. Now if you want, there you go. You can also take that and just put it on a round cookie sheet and just make a round loaf of bread, or either way. You don't have to use a loaf pan if you don't want to. That looks nice. Wish you guys could smell it. But if you make it at home, you'll be able to have your whole house smelling like yummy fresh bread and chicken gnocchi soup.
Thank you. Yes. Hey!
Locked in. All right. Now you can spray the top a little bit with some cooking spray if you'd like. That way it doesn't dry out. You don't have to. It's personal preference. Okay, now we'll stick them back in our heated oven and let them rise to the top. And I'll show you what they look like before they're ready to be baked. So we'll get these in the oven and we'll go check on our soup. bread is risen, I'm gonna pull it out and let you see it, and then I'm gonna preheat the oven, and then we're gonna go finish our soup while the bread is baking, and then we'll show you what it all looks like when we're done. Those look nice. Get really big. Alright, let's preheat the oven. So if you like a little bit of thicker soup, you can always add some cornstarch to it. Just gotta dissolve a little bit in some water. Doesn't that look amazing? That's good. So now, before you go to serve it, you want to make sure that you taste it and make sure there's enough salt and pepper in it. Let's give it a quick taste. Add a little bit. You just gotta keep tasting it until you get it to the right flavor that you like. We'll let that cook for a few minutes and then we're gonna serve up a bowl. Now that our soup is done and our bread's all baked, doesn't that look pretty? I'm gonna cut us a slice. Dish up a bowl of some soup. Meat chunks. All right. There is chicken gnocchi soup. Really good. Better when you dip bread in it. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned next week. We're gonna make Nanaimo bars. See you later.